What's up, everyone? If you're watching this later, I just started the live stream, so no one's here yet, but we're going to do some breakthrough coaching today because I want to see where everyone's at. A lot of people are going through really big shifts right now in their spiritual journey, and I want to show up for you because things have been going really well for me for a while. And it really troubles me to see so many people that get really stuck. People get really stuck on this journey. I've been stuck many times, but it doesn't take that much to get unstuck. One of the biggest things I see people go through is just a lot of self-doubt. I think that's one of the biggest things that keeps people in a lower frequency is just self-doubt. You get those visions. You've seen those visions. You've seen how your life can be. And if you're not actively stepping towards that, then it oftentimes has to do with some sort of internal block. It's not always that, but I'd say most of the time it is. And yeah. So I'm here for you guys. Whatever you need, just put it in the comments. I don't know why some people struggle so much on this journey, and then other people seem to have a really easy time with self improvement, manifestation, and spirituality in general. For me, one of the things that I see most with clients of mine is that they try to pursue their purpose in small little bursts. And because they do it in such small bursts, they never really get the proper momentum. And because they don't have the proper momentum, they never become the version of themselves that can really create and attract this high level of energy or whatever specific thing that you're going through. A lot of people will, the best analogy I can make is it's kind of like when you are trying to get into a cold pool and you just keep dipping your toes in and checking the temperature. And guess what? Every time the pool is cold. But if you jump into the deep end, then the pool is cold for the first little bit, but then it gets really neutral. You get used to it. It becomes your new normal. A lot of people never give themselves the chance to get the new normal of their life because they're constantly just dipping their toes in. And because they dip their toes in like that, they honestly suffer a lot more than people who just jump into the deep end and get the hard part over with.
Little slow start today. Sometimes YouTube Live doesn't have that many people. So if you're watching on the recording, that's why. It's because there's been a couple people that like popped in. But we're getting it going. A lot of people get stuck with life because they treat life like this game of choosing the right answer instead of what life actually is, which is much more like a relationship. And just like with a partner, you can't really just, hey, Steve, I see you there. Thanks for joining today. Um, just like a partner, you can't just do the right thing and then expect them to do the right thing back to you. You must show up in love. And when we show up in love, then sometimes we make mistakes. And more often than not, we do what others consider as the right thing. But because people are so concerned in life with picking the right answer, which I personally think comes from their time in school, I think that we're almost trained in this way to view life like it's this journey of choice. And choice matters, but it matters much more on the third dimensional level. And right now, for a lot of humans, especially spiritually inclined, because all humans are spiritual, especially spiritually inclined individuals, they're in this state of consciousness where choice does not matter as much. What matters a lot more is the actual love you bring to your actions and the relationship that you have on the inside to other people and to life itself, to God, to nature. A big part of my journey lately has been treating life much more like it's a relationship rather than like it's a test. I'm not trying to guess the right answers and force myself to do the right answer thing. I'm much more concerned with how I'm relating. And what I found is when I'm concerned more with how I relate, then it's almost like things that happen to me happen for me. And then things that aren't meant for me start to fall apart in front of me. Whereas when I have tried to force myself to do what I thought was the correct answer for long periods of time, I often fall out of harmony. And even though I'm doing the thing, like maybe I'm meditating a lot or I'm posting a lot of content or whatever, I'm showing up and volunteering at a food shelter or something like that, then very often I get trapped in the paradigm of, did I do enough right? Did I do enough right? Is it okay what I'm doing? And you start to get in this doubtful relationship with life where you don't really have a natural flow with it. You have a much more strictness. It almost feels like you can't mess up or else. And it's not a bad way of living. It's better than simply following your lowest pleasures all the time and what's easiest for you in a physical way. It's good to follow what's easiest for the spirit, you know. But in terms of how a lot of people live, making good choices and encouraging yourself to make good choices is very important.
But for us, like people watching this, people that are part of the Circle of Wisdom community, people that are in that frequency and maybe don't even know us, what we're working through as a collective is the next level. We're not on that previous level of trying to choose everything perfectly. We're on the level of showing up in love. That's a big thing I've been talking to myself about lately as well, is showing up. So much of the time, just simply showing up is such a good energy. Even if you're showing up in pain, even if you're showing up in anxiety, even if you're showing up not as your fullest self, simply showing up is a huge aspect of being. It's about showing up and letting go of the judgments of, did I do it right or wrong? Could I do this better, that better? Those things might come up. But it's so important to let go and to be much more in the flow of what is coming up from within you and try to show up in those areas. Like for me, a big area I've been showing up for myself is playing guitar. Because playing guitar, if you guys haven't played guitar before, it's pretty hard. It, like, you can look at my fingers. I have like little calluses on them now. And I've actually played guitar to the point where my fingers started bleeding before. So a lot of people, they think guitar is kind of like piano where you just press it and it makes a noise. But with guitar, you're basically like pressing your fingertips against a really sharp metal that's really thin. So when you play guitar for like an hour, if you don't have the hands for it, it really hurts. Like my fingers hurt right now. And when I show up and play guitar, I don't mind if I miss a note. I don't mind if I play the wrong note. It doesn't create an energetic resonance in my body of like, no, wrong. It just simply creates, I feel good because I'm playing. I feel good because the guitar is in my hands. I feel good because I'm creating. I feel good because I'm when you're playing guitar, it's a different frequency than when you're walking around or when you're talking with people. You get into a different state. And everyone has these in different areas. It's not always guitar. Sometimes it's dance, or sometimes it's singing, or sometimes it's painting, or just a very specific skill set. Like I watched a video today about this Swiss watchmaker named Philippe Dufour. I think it's Dufour. And it takes him a year to build a watch, and he builds them over 2,000 hours, which usually takes him about a year. And he's tightening screws that are the size of a grain of sand. And he mentioned something in the video. He said he wakes up, he brews his coffee, he lights his pipe because he smokes tobacco, and then he starts making watches. And he says, and I'm in heaven. And I could just picture that, because for me, that wouldn't do that much for me. I would be frustrated trying to make a watch. That would be pretty difficult. I wouldn't be able to. But for him, it's his art. It's probably his highest level of creativity. And that's what puts him in that heaven state. It's not when he sells his watch and makes a bunch of money. It's not when other people go, wow, you made such a good watch. That's not when he gets his heaven. He gets his heaven when he does his morning routine and then he gets to work. That's heaven for him. And that's how heaven can be for us as well. We can show up in our life in such a way that our daily life becomes art. And our daily life becomes this very sacred thing, this sacred practice. And I think that's beautiful. I think it's so beautiful when people have their area of expertise that just brings them so much light and joy. And for some of us, our art gets conflated with achievement. But art is much more expression than achievement. And expressing yourself isn't necessarily an achievement all the time. Expressing yourself just is. It is what it is. It has its own value within itself, regardless of if he at the end of the year he dropped the watch and broke it. It doesn't matter. All that time wasn't wasted. That time was still spent in his state of heaven and awareness. So it's a good sign for us to remember to find heaven in our life, because heaven doesn't have to always show up like pleasure or like success. Heaven can often be simply showing up in an area that is meaningful to us. So for me, when I host a Circle of Wisdom call, or I attend someone else's call that they're hosting, like if Steve's hosting a sound healing, then showing up there gives me so much blessed energy, because it's where I want to be. It's where my soul wants to be. And it's when we have these areas of our life, life becomes heaven. When we miss these areas, or when these areas of life become too closely related to external achievement, even in the watchmaker's case, he sells his watches. He's successful. They're expensive. But that's not where his true heaven is. So it's so important, and almost, I would say, precious to have an area of your life that allows you to tap in this way. And I have many areas of my life, and that's such a big blessing for me. I have so many areas of my life that I can show up in this way. And many of them, sometimes if I'm too in my ego, they become vehicles for me to get happiness later. Like, oh, if I play guitar like this, then one day I'll be able to play so well and my music will take off. And once it gets there, it almost leaves the train station. I almost no longer have that. It's not mine anymore. I let go of it. It's in the future now. It's not here. But when I show up here with love and here with presence, everything becomes so magical, I would say. Life becomes how I think life is supposed to be, where it's working with you. It's like this heaven, this synchronistic blending of positive energies and frequencies, where everything starts to go the way of our soul. It doesn't always go the way of our ego. It goes the way of our soul. And Steve says, singing bowls, crystals, music, and guitars. Love it. Yep. I feel the same about those. I'm not good at playing the bowls, but I have one at my parents' house. I didn't bring it to Hawaii because I didn't want to break it in like a luggage, and it was expensive. But I love sound bowls. So find an area of your life, even if it's not something you would consider your purpose, or even if it's not something that you are looking to have external success in. It could be your meditation, could be your relationships, communities you're a part of, friends that you have. All of these things can be these portals to heaven in our lives. And when we access them in our lives, then all the other details start to get figured out. It becomes a whole lot easier for you to manifest when you're in a state of consciousness where you're already having fun, you're already feeling in love, you're already feeling at peace. It's so hard to create. Sometimes it's impossible. I remember times when I tried so hard to achieve things, and it just didn't even remotely happen. And then I've had times where it's almost like I'm just playing with something, and then it just takes a new form, and I follow it, and it becomes something absolutely amazing. Also, if anyone here has any questions or topics that you might want me to talk about, then you can post them in the chat. I don't know if I can bring people up here on YouTube Live. I've never done that, but I can definitely answer your questions that you have here. Steve says conscious manifestation comes through a manifested consciousness. Love it. So true. Little things can bring us so much joy too, like setting up Christmas decorations, if you do that, or little conversations. So much of my life, it's other people that really mean something. It's not the success, it's not the moments of transcending blocks, even. That's great. It's fun, it's interesting, it's enlightening, but it's not the same as that feeling of connection and relationship that obviously can come from meditation, but with other people it's just different. Presence is not something you can do. Also, this has been is one of the biggest things I teach my clients, because they try to do presence as if it's something you can activate within yourself, but it's not. It's the one thing that you can't really do anything about at all. It's always just there. The difference between what people call a present person and someone who's not very present, it's not the lack of presence in that moment. It's the lack of awareness. So presence is just being aware of what's going on. It's always going on. Life's always happening. But are you a part of it? A lot of times it's just the unconscious patterns within us that are a part of life, moving forward in the same way that they moved yesterday. But how much are you, like that inner force, that consciousness, how much are you really showing up in your day to day? And how much is just an old pattern? How much is old habits, old ways of thinking? And you never want to try to be present because it's kind of like trying to be awake or trying to fall asleep. These things don't really come from trying. They come from allowing and letting. They come from the allowing. And sometimes that means allowing uncomfortable feelings. Presence isn't always this like glistening, sparkling feeling. Sometimes it's like, you know, that feeling when you move a couch and then you're like, oh, look at all that disgusting stuff under there that I need to sweep up and mop. Sometimes that's what presence is like. It's like, oh, I can see myself, I can see life, I can see the world. And it's not that good. And it's dark and it's twisted. But showing up for it makes it lighter. Trying to focus on the light and only be positive makes the darkness grow because it festers. It's just like if you kept, it's why they have that metaphor called sweeping stuff under the rug. It's because when you sweep stuff under the rug, you're essentially putting it somewhere that it's not really clean, but it's out of sight. And I think that's what a lot of people do in their spiritual work is they sweep things out of sight. But sweeping something out of sight, it doesn't mean it's not there. And it doesn't mean it's not affecting you and affecting your everyday life. I'd say most of what affects us is in the subconscious. It's under the rug. Most of what is creating and generating our life is actually something under the rug. And the things that we focus on in daily life and even sometimes the meditations we do or the positive energy that's already available, it's not under the rug. It's right in the open so we can see it all the time. And we think, if I'm this, then I should be manifesting so much more, or I could be receiving so much more. But it's not true. If life is showing up different than how we consciously view ourselves, then we're not quite able to fully see what's back here in the dark. And when we're not able to see into the dark, it can creep out and fester into your life. Steve says, are you able to feel a depth of presence in the nature of Hawaii and the surf and mountains? Yeah, but it's a different kind of presence. It's not a presence that is, for example, where's a place that I felt present? It's not an alertness type of presence. It's like a surrendered type of presence. And that's why so many people will report that when they moved to Hawaii, their business just started failing. And it's because they were in the mainland in America somewhere or Europe somewhere where the energy was more fast paced, focused on productivity. And then it was easier for them to kind of hop onto that wavelength and use it for their business. And then they come out here. And if you've seen the construction workers work, no one cares about productivity out here. They'll take a year and a half to fix 4 potholes in the road. They don't care. They're too busy enjoying the beautiful nature out here. And it's an energy thing. They don't value productivity that much here. So the energy is not supported in productivity, although you can still be productive. But I've definitely noticed that I have to tune more into the energy of nature rather than the energy of, you know, just get it done. Because when I lived in LA, I could just kind of get it done and it would work. Here, if I just get it done, I usually end up showing up in a bit of stress. And if I focus on just being and I let the productivity be slower, then things show up when they're meant to. So, Hawaii gives me a much deeper connection to my body and to my spirit, I think. But it's a lot harder to relate with people that are still in the productivity mindset, which is, people that have money usually are more in the productivity mindset because that's just the current state of the world. In the future, money won't as be tied to productivity or be as tied. It will be much more tied to energy. Like the amount of energy you can hold will attract the money that you have. Instead of now, it's kind of like the energy of what you do in America. There's still people that transcend it and live from a heart-based place and make millions of dollars, but you have to you have to be a brighter light. Like it doesn't take just a little bit of love to be there. It takes a lot, and it's got to be what I've found is you have to have compassion for the people that are stuck in the productivity mindset. A lot of people that are out of the productivity flow because they know it just kind of burns them out. They have a resentment towards that, and they almost resent people that are in that mindset. And that actually blocks them from transcending that mindset. And instead, they go behind that mindset because they're almost frustrated with people instead of just understanding that that's their safety. In the same way that a child has a little blanket, you don't want to rip it away from them, even though it's just a blanket and it's not really keeping them safe. In the same way, you can have people that are addicted to being successful and productive. And that's the same as like a little kid that doesn't want their teddy bear to go away. And we have to treat it with compassion. These people that live in this frequency, if we treat them with frustration or jealousy or like pride, like we're doing it better than them, then we'll actually tune out from the money frequency a lot of the time. Because there's a higher money frequency than the productivity one, like the fast moving forward paced energy. But it's not the same as just how a lot of people live. It's deeper and it's transcendental and it's uplifting and uprooting to the productivity frequency. It's more powerful than the productivity frequency. The productivity frequency is more powerful than most people's state of consciousness, but the higher love frequency is much more powerful than the productivity one. So it's important to realize that you've got to be like, if you want to conquer that, because not everyone needs to, but if you really want to conquer that, it's going to take a lot more than just a little bit of love. You've got to become like blasting with love. So loving that when you meet a person that's stuck in a state of that consciousness, you're able to kind of uproot and bring them into your state instead of what a lot of people do, which is kind of let them bulldoze over you. Also, for anyone that just joined, we're open for questions. So if you want to ask a question in the chat, then you can type that and I'll get it answered. Ooh, I keep trying to get this mosquito. There's so many of them. That's like, I went back to visit my parents' house and they live in California and there's like no mosquitoes where they live. And I forgot how annoying they are. That's like the one bane of my life here. I love my life here. I don't want to move, but mosquitoes suck. How did you end up living and working in Hawaii? Says Leah, right? Um, so I moved. I during COVID, I came out here for like 2 months, and that was right after I launched my business. So I launched my business in June 2020. No, that's when I started making money. I launched it probably March. Yeah. But then for the first couple months, I was just kind of building my audience. And so around June, I started making money, like full-time money from spiritual coaching. And I quit my other job. And then I did really well over that summer. And then August and November, I spent in Hawaii on the North Shore, like right near Waimea Bay. And I went out there for a month, but then I ended up going out there. I stayed for another month, and I loved it so much. And I met a lot of friends out here. And what happened was I went back to LA and I still had a lease there. So I was paying double rent when I was in Hawaii. So it was too expensive. But it was worth it for me at the time. So I was paying double rent. And so I had to go back. And then around March, I got a subleaser or a sublessee or whatever. And so I was able to move. So around then I started traveling. I lived in Tulum for a bit, Costa Rica, then back in LA, and then I moved to Hawaii. So I think in March I was able to leave LA, and then I traveled a little more because I was like, maybe everywhere besides LA is this awesome. But then Tulum and Costa Rica were very cool, but they didn't really like scratch that itch that Hawaii did for me. So I came out here September 2021, and I've been out here, yeah, for over 4 years. And in terms of working, I can work from wherever I want because I've built my business to that point where I make a full-time income from it, which is such a blessing. And I've been able to support myself off my business for 5 years now, almost 5 years, 4.5. So yeah, that's what drew me out here. Is I came out here because some friends were coming out here, and then I loved it so much that I stayed a month. That's what happened. I was here with 4 friends, and then they left after that month was over because we rented a house for a month, and then I subleased someone's room in a different house that was of a friend that we had met. So because of that, I yeah, I just when I was back in LA, I was like, "Why am I in LA? This sucks." Yeah. And Leah says, "I'm currently living in PA and just working to pay the bills, but I've previously lived in a much better place in NC, energetically alive, and now can't seem to get back to that in my current location." Yeah, different places have different energy. So you can very well maybe not even find the community you're looking for in your area. But I would say it probably is somewhere just hidden, but that could be a call that you want to move somewhere else, somewhere that has more accessibility to communities like that. Yeah, it's because the energy is so different in different places, and it draws in very different people and situations and lifestyles and all of that. So if I were you, I would just tap in, get into a really high state of consciousness, do some meditation, do some breath work, and just ask your higher self, ask life, am I in the right place right now? Or am I holding myself back from a move that maybe I should make? And very much of the time, we're holding ourselves back because we think we need this or that. Like, for example, like I quit my job when I think I had made $1,200. I think I made $1,200 and then I quit my job. And that's not enough to support me for a month. So but I knew I was like, if I can make $1,200 this quick, then I can make way more. And I knew it was the time. But I think if I had kind of wimped out on that and not quit my job, stayed in my job, I think my business never would have taken off. I think it always would have been more of a side hustle. because I never put myself in a position where I needed to earn from it, and where I'm showing the universe like, "Hey, I'm showing up in this way. Please support me." And then I didn't do it in a dumb way where I had no evidence that it was going to work, and then not necessarily a dumb way, but a really risky way. It was more of a way where I got a taste of what it could be like, and then I was like, "Okay, I'm doing this. There's no room for lollygagging. It's time to really do it. It's time to really go in." And that's what I did. And yeah, I think energy is such that when we keep safety nets around, then we always fall into the safety net. I don't think I've ever not fallen into my safety net when I've had it. But whenever I don't have a safety net and it's do or die, then it happens. That's something I've noticed. It's hard to do that. And also, I'm not saying just like quit your job if you have no idea how you'd make money. But it does seem like when I put myself in that position, it works out. And when it's a maybe, then it's usually a no. But when it's a yes, it's a yes. And I think that's how the universe works. It's kind of like dating. If you're like, maybe I like this person, that's not the energy to go into it with. It once you know you like someone, you've got to show up fully. And then if they reject you, they reject you. But you can't half-ass it, you know? I like that. Faith is spelled Risk from Steve. Totally agree. Yeah, that's what proves our faith, right? Because faith is just an idea until we actually depend on it, until we actually have such faith in ourselves and in God and in life that we can make those leaps of faith without getting, not without getting scared, but without falling, without failing. Yeah, life is about taking those risks. You gotta, because the risks aren't always there. And then also, they're not always available for you because you might not want to take a risk at a certain point in your life when you have some thing going on or some obligation or responsibility. You might more so want to play it safe. So I think it's so important when you have those openings where you in a way, you have nothing to lose. You always have something to lose, but in a certain way, you have nothing to lose. Those are the times to really make those leaps, I think. Steve says, "This is rich soil, Chris." I agree. I think it's the unknown, right? It's the spicy part of life is the unknown. It's not something to be avoided. We don't want everything to be known. Imagine how boring life would be if we just knew everything. We knew all the answers. We knew exactly what was going to happen on what day. We knew exactly what stock to invest in. We know like that sounds so boring to me, at least. That sounds mind-numbingly boring. I don't think I would like to live a life like that. I think life with some unknown is what gives it that oomph, that spice, that feeling that it's meaningful. I think if we knew everything, it would be harder to find meaning. A great example is like when you're playing a video game, like and you have limitations, right? But the limitations make the game. If you just do cheat codes and bypass all the limitations, it's not even a game anymore. You just walk to the finish line or whatever. You walk to the next level. It's not fun. That's so boring. Yet a lot of us, that we almost treat our spiritual life as if we're trying to break down the unknown and know everything and control everything. And it's such a Western mindset. I I love manifesting. I love receiving things that I want. I love intending and creating, but I also love that it doesn't always work and that sometimes I uncover an unknown block that I didn't know I needed to work on. I actually love that. I love that aspect of life. It's it's what gives life that fun. And in my experience, whenever I've been in that unknown state, although it's really anxiety inducing, it's also the moments I look back on and I'm like, wow, I was really living it right then. Like I was really in the flow. That's so cool that I handled that and I created that and that all of this came from that risk or that decision, that gift. So, who in here is working on something that they feel like they're stuck in some way? Because I want to help you with this. Who in here has something in their life? Maybe it's their career path, maybe it's relationships, maybe it's your health. Who's kind of stuck on a factor they don't really know the right way to go? And I'm not here to tell you the right way to go. I'm just here to hold space for it because somewhere deep down, if it's meant to be known, you already know it. If it's not meant to be known, then it will be revealed. Steve says concentration during pain. So when pain is going on in the body, staying focused on maybe some aspect of work you're doing or something like that? Or are you saying more so like a meditative concentration while you're experiencing the pain? The first one, I think you're saying yes to. Yeah. For me, and I haven't gone through any really serious health issues, mm, luckily, and but I've definitely been through times where there's just something not right in my energy or my spirit or my body, and it just hurts. Like I had a lot of stomach pain for the last year. There's something magical about just being able to incorporate and accept the pain. And it's a whole lot easier said than done. It's a whole lot easier said than done. I do My grandpa once, I remember this as a kid, way before I got into spirituality. He told me he had a lot of arm pain from a surgery and he breathed the pain into his heart space and then breathed it out and his arm stopped hurting for like 15 minutes even though it was in a lot of pain. He was taking pain meds for it. So what I really break that down to is not that breathing and moving the energy is the important part, but what he mentioned is in order to move it and release it, he had to accept that it was there. And he, in a certain way, he had to not really mind if it stayed. And I think this is something that, and this relates so much more than just physical pain, is, what about, for example, the pain of not having enough, or the pain of missing someone, or the pain of feeling like you messed up, feeling ashamed, or feeling like you could have done better and you didn't. I think a reason people stay stuck in that some of the time is because they're fighting it. And I'm a big proponent in the idea that fight creates more fight. If you fight your body, it's going to fight you back. If you fight the pain, it's going to fight you back. There's a thing I see like kind of advanced empaths struggle with is they start to gain like abilities to ground themselves and remain in energy. And then they notice other people's energy is throwing them off. And then instead of learning how to align their energy in a deeper way that isn't affected by that person, they get in an energetic fight with that person. And it never goes well. Never goes well. Even if you win the energetic fight, you lose the war. Because now you're in a fighting and a defensive state of consciousness, and you're going to need to continue that in order to remain in balance. So what I would say, Steve, is, and I'm sure you're already working with this because you were saying Kristen and you were already talking about this, which is a cool synchronicity that we're both able to tap into, or we're all three able to tap into, that is it's acceptance, which is it's way harder than it sounds. Even acceptance seems like this easy thing. And what I would, a word that's coming through that rephrases acceptance is incorporation. So it's important to incorporate the pain into your awareness. It's kind of like the Ram Dass quote where he says, you can either do it like it's a weight on you, or you can move with the dance. I'm really butchering that quote. But you can either do it like it's a heavy weight, or you can do it like it's part of the dance. So I think part of that is trying not to avoid the pain and go into this higher state of consciousness, but trying to be with the pain and bring in the higher state of consciousness. And allow the pain to be an aspect of who you are, what you're experiencing in that moment. Just like if we're having a conversation with a family member or something, but the energy's kind of off and it feels like we're being energetically attacked. But if we show up with incorporation, where we go, oh, that's just part of the moment, is that they have this pain that they don't understand, and I'm kind of tapping into it. That's just part of this moment. It's part of what is, and it's not something to be avoided or changed. It's just part of what is. If we try to prevent it from happening, we fight against the energy or the physical pain or whatever, it's going to fight us back. It's going to put us into defense, and we're going to be fending off energy and pain and everything all day long. Otherwise, when you incorporate it, it doesn't heal the pain. That's the big part to remember, is acceptance doesn't heal the pain necessarily. It allows you to transcend it, which you still feel it when you're transcending it. What transcending means is that it doesn't affect the flow that you're going. It's because it's part of it. You already accounted for it and anticipated it, and it's part of it. And you're there with it, and you move from that place. And thanks for that question, Steve, and just sending you blessings for everything you're healing through right now. I'm glad that you're out of the hospital and you're back home. I'm super happy to hear that. And yeah, just sending you love, brother. And I know you're going to come out the other side of these health issues even more grounded in the body and blasting with love and even wiser than you already are. And for everyone else, this same metaphor works because we all go through pain in different ways, whether it's emotional, physical, spiritual, mental. And I think, at least for me, I fall into the pattern of sometimes trying to avoid the pain, trying to be a different thing than the pain, trying to put this thing in front that doesn't have the pain. And then that thing can get all my work done. but it doesn't work like that, and it never pans out for me when I do that. Life tends to pan out when I become more sensitive. Not when I numb my sensitivity, but when I become more sensitive, when I become more aware. Because that deeper sensitivity also taps you into the deeper healing energies. That's the part a lot of people miss. They feel a lot of pain, whether it's physical or emotional or energetic, and they try to avoid it or release it. But then they themselves are becoming less sensitive as they do it. But the real magic is actually becoming more sensitive, letting it affect you more so that you can fully understand it and then move with it in a new way. And Leah says, feeling the need for a sensitive partner in friendship and romance to work and love with along this journey. Yeah, I will say one thing though, because I have that, and I have an amazing soulmate, beautiful girlfriend that I live with that does hold me in love so much. But also, what I'll say is a relationship is a journey in and of itself. And while it definitely can help support you in your other areas of life, it it is the hardest spiritual work I've ever encountered. And I've done really deep spiritual work. It is so revealing, it is so triggering. And so what I will say is if you think that a partner would simply just add, and I'm not saying you do think this, but just want to clarify so that you understand from my perspective how I feel about this. It's not going to really de-stress your life. It's not necessarily going to push you more towards alignment. It oftentimes will stir up everything else that you haven't been able to encounter while single. And it'll start it's just like start like a business is another example of that. People think if my business is booming and I can travel and I don't have a job, then my life's going to be so awesome. But you're just trading one thing for the other. You're like, for example, like it's stressful to run a business, although it does give you a deep sense of meaning, and it also freed me from a lot of the things that stress other people out. But now I have things that other people are not stressed with, but I have to stress about them. And it's pretty much even in terms of like heaviness and stress. The difference is there's a lot more meaning and purpose in what I'm doing now, so I can match that heaviness and stress. But it's the same thing with the relationship. It's not going to make you happier. If you don't feel happy now, a relationship's not going to make you happy. It'll probably make you more unhappy and more scared and more triggered. If you're happy now, then a relationship will help you grow more. But if don't use my biggest point, I guess, is don't let a relationship be a replacement of happiness, because that can come when you're single. It can come when you're in pain. Happiness is something that is more about your relationship to life rather than about people and things. Because people and things are temporary in your life. But your relationship to existing, your relationship to showing up, that's something that's eternal, even beyond this body. And Steve said, ain't that the truth? Adds layers of energy. Yes. Boom. It makes, especially if your and this is the thing too, if your partner's working through something that you've already worked through, you're going to get thrown right back into the pit. Because until they work through it, you're not going to really be fully out of it either, because you're around it all the time. So remember that when you join up with a person, it's not just positive. It's very much and also it's everything that you are reflected back to you in a different person. So any issue you have, they're going to have some sort of reciprocal level of issue, you know? Dave says, "What do you make of Ujjayi pranayama?" I I haven't heard that word, Ujjayi, but I know pranayama is breath work, and I love breath work. And I love the ancient practices. I love the more modern, like holotropic Wim Hof stuff. I love mixing breath work with different techniques like chakra work and energy and visualization, like visualizing colors. And I love incorporating breath work into ceremony and into healing in different ways. You know? So let me look it up. Is that a specific? The victorious breath, they call it. Oh, that's funny. You create a soft ocean-like or Darth Vader-like sound. That's pretty cool. I haven't done this before, but I love using the breath. That's the way to do it. The breath is the portal to everything. There's a reason why we're breathing 24/7 and we only need to eat a couple times a day and drink water a couple times a day, but we need to breathe every single minute. There's a reason for that. And it's because when we're breathing, we're not even just breathing in air a lot of the time. We're breathing in consciousness. Every breath, you're recycling consciousness into your body and then letting go of old consciousness. So, any sort of breath work, especially something that's been like stacked up and proven for years and years and years, any sort of breath work like that is great in my book. I haven't experienced a known breathwork technique that didn't resonate with me. They all did something for me. Although I will say I don't like Wim Hof style as much anymore. I like the breathing of it. I don't like the rounds and the time and the regularity of it. I like breathworks that are more like you kind of lose yourself in it for like 20 minutes. I think those are the best ones because you're not like in control anymore. It's about letting go of control. And I feel like Wim Hof, at least for me, I get into kind of a controlling mindset where I'm like monitoring the time and I'm thinking about my breath too much. But it's very powerful. And it was the first thing that got me into breath work, I will say. Leah said, I've had 2 serious partners. The second was a fiance who passed. I work better in a partnership. And she says, I'm happy, but I work better with a partner. Awesome. That's a cool thing to call in then. And you know, it's an important thing to trust because I feel like things like relationships are very much not in our control how they begin. I think relationships are placed in our life and we can take action to show up and be vulnerable, or we can kind of close off. But I do think there's a time and place for us to meet a partner. And sometimes we're just not in that time and place. And yeah, I remember for me, I weirdly had a download where I had this message that was like, "You're gonna meet your future wife in 8 months." And then I forgot, but I remembered like 2 years later, I was like, "Wait a second." And then I did the math, and I think it was August, and it ended up being exactly 8 months to when I met my girlfriend. So, I feel like also I remember I wasn't attached at all. I was in very much a state of full freedom. And that's the same thing with my business. Because I wanted to have a great business for years, probably since 2016 to 2020. But then it didn't really happen until I was fully immersed in it, but also fully free. I feel like people either get immersed in something, like, for example, dating or content creation or starting a business, but then they get really attached and they really want it to go a certain way. And then that kind of blocks them. Other people, they're not very attached, but they don't really do anything. They're not dating. They're not trying to find a partner. They're not, you know, reaching out to people. They're not opening themselves up in that vulnerability. And then they're also not attached. So then it also doesn't arrive. I feel like things arrive when we are fully committed, but also fully unattached. A lot of it has to do with frequency as well. You know, maybe the person that's right for you hasn't quite reached the frequency that they need to reach to meet you. We always talk about the other way, where it's us that needs to raise our frequency so we can match them. But what if the person that's destined to meet you or be with you hasn't quite done the work and they need 6 months or they need 2 more years? But then they would be the perfect person at that point. I think a lot of times life works in this way with money too, because money is basically another version of other people saying yes to you. You ever thought of that? People saying yes to you is kind of the same energy as money. Because in order for you to have money, someone has to say yes to you. Probably a lot of people. That could be in applying for a job, someone has to say, yes, I'll hire you. If it's your own business, then each client has to say, yes, I want to work with you. If it's something like a relation, or we're talking about money, if it's something like even like your parents giving you an inheritance or something, it's them saying yes to you. And so, however way you're receiving money, it always has to do with someone saying yes, unless you steal it or unless you find it on the ground. There's not really any other way to make money unless someone else is giving you it. And if for someone else to give you it, you've got to say yes, or they've got to say yes. So what I've noticed is a lot of times if we're in a doubtful frequency, we're in like a no. We're saying no to the universe, or we're saying maybe, or we're saying not now, or not this way. And then money can't come until we start saying yes, this. Oh, yes, this. Yes, this. Yes to myself. Yes to this person. And we get in a yes frequency. And then other people start thinking of us and they go, yes, yeah, yes, I want to join his community. Yes, I want to hire him as my spiritual coach. Yes, I want to sign him to a record deal and pay him $3.3 million. Yes, yes. You know, and a good way to check if you're in a yes frequency is just do what I just did. Just say, yes, yes, yes. Say it in a couple different tones and see if it is it easy for you or does it feel like, oh, like kind of gross. Because sometimes I'll say yes and I'm like, ah, like my face makes like a stink face, like I just smell garbage. And if I do that, I know I'm probably in a no. Why am I in a no? What am I saying no to? Usually has to do with fear. So it's a big thing to tune in with yourself. What am I saying yes to? What am I saying no to? And are you saying yes to life itself? Are you saying yes to God? Or are you saying wait or no or maybe? So try saying yes and notice what emotion comes up. There's a yes. But you can say it to yourself. But you can type it too. See how typing it feels. And Leah says that seems like an oxymoron. Which aspect? So are you saying it contradicts itself? That we might be saying yes or no to something? And then Dave says, inscribed over the entrance of the monastery at Mount Athos is the saying, die before you die, so that you don't die when you die. Ah, I love this. I just went through a crazy experience with this. So, oh, she may have been referring to what Dave said. Yeah, I'm not sure actually. But let's talk about that. So, essentially, here's what I think. I don't know if you guys experienced this, but I remember being very young and it kind of hit me. I was like, "Oh shit, one day I'm gonna die." I remember I was like 6 or 7 and I was like, "Wait, I'm gonna die? Like my parents are gonna die, everyone's gonna die? I'm gonna get older and die?" And I remember I would sit up at night like fighting it. I was like, "No, no, no." And at some point I think I just repressed it. I was like, "Eh." I think I kept bringing it up to my parents and they would laugh at me almost and be like, "You're a little kid, like, why are you worried about that? You don't have to worry about that." But I had this thing, I was like, "It doesn't matter if it's in a long time, it's gonna happen." Like, it's not it's not a choice, it's not avoidable, like, it's gonna freaking happen. And I remember sitting in this, like, this pain that seemed impossible to get over. And I really think I just repressed it for years and years until the other night, I was doing a cannabis ceremony and I encountered my feeling of death that I felt as a kid, where I was thinking about my parents are getting older, like they're gonna die one day, and I'm gonna die, and I'm already turning 30 soon, so like I'm getting older. And then I just sat with it. I was like, oh, and then I could feel all of the spirits of people that have died that didn't accept it, that are fighting the fact that they died. And I noticed that fighting would make them reincarnate again. And because they couldn't deal with dying, so they would need to create a new body. And I had this deep understanding that I hadn't had before, that this is what humans are dealing with, and we all repress it because it is inevitable and it's the scariest thing, and we all push it on later. We all push it on later. This could be a great example. Leah's saying, "Sounds morbid. I think we should all live." But you're not gonna. That's like it's kind of like a fantasy. It's like a fake fantasy. I think a lot of religion does this too. It's like, "Don't worry, right after you die, you have this eternal life beyond that." But in reality, the you that's here is not the one that lives the eternal life. The you that's here dies. The essence you have lives. The you that's here does not live beyond this life. The one you know yourself as, the character, does not live beyond this life. And I think a lot of people are so afraid and they're so scared of death. But death is just as important as birth and just as important as life. And death isn't really death. Death is just recycling because nothing ever ends. It's this recycling process. And I totally agree with what Dave or what that quote says. And I think I've died before I died. I think I have come face to face with death in so many ways that I really am free from it now. And I think that in order to really live, we need to understand death fully. And I think that if we don't, we will always live in fear. And then when death comes, we will not be able to face it, and we will just reincarnate into a new life to run away from death again. But what else is death? It's God. What happens when you die? What do people always say? You meet God. I'm going to be face to face with God. And I think a lot of us don't want to die because we're scared of that face to face meeting with God. And I think a lot of us reincarnate because we're scared of that face to face meeting. We're scared to come up close to what this life actually is. And it was never intended to be forever. Otherwise, it would have been, you know? Yeah, that's so I processed this immense energy that had been holding me back since I was probably 5 or 6 years old, but probably it's been a part of my life for many past lives. And I think I finally, it felt like I conquered death, like how they talk about like enlightened people conquering death. I don't think of myself as enlightened, but I think a lot of humans are coming up to the things that enlightened people faced in the past. But I think humanity is going through its own version of an enlightenment that's not as perfect as some enlightened beings are, but is still as complete as they are. Leah says, death is another door, but why not live while we're still here? Well, what's the difference? You're gonna live until you die no matter what. It's not up to whether you accept death. I think accepting death helps you live more because you understand it's temporary and you take advantage of what you have. I think a lot of people that avoid death, they pretend life is eternal because the same thing over and over again, every day, looping, looping, looping. It feels like it's never going to end, but then it does. And now what? And I think what the quote Dave is pointing at is you better face that now because you won't be able to face it when you die. It'll be too overwhelming for your soul to confront it, and you'll avoid it again and reincarnate into another lower level energy body like we are now. And I think if you confront and face death in your life, then by the time you die, it's liberation. And I think for people that don't confront death, when they die, it's the opposite. It's like the infinite darkness and they start panicking. Because I'm not a believer that souls die and they're in this eternal peace. I think that's what everyone wishes. I think whatever you're dealing with just continues. I think when you die, you have all the same problems, all the same blockages, all the same misunderstandings as you did in this life. And I think the reason we're in this life is because we were out of a body and we didn't quite get it. So we had to go into a body again to learn more and to understand more. Yeah, I think our spirit will live on as a spirit, but I think our spirit has a lot of problems. And that's why we're working through them in a physical life. Otherwise, we would just be in spirit all the time. There's no reason for a spirit to come to earth unless it has some misunderstanding that it hasn't quite handled yet. And so I think when we die, we have those same issues that we did in life. Just it doesn't apply to money, it applies to like energy, and it doesn't apply to dating, it applies to relating to celestial bodies of energy, you know? Yes, Steve said turning your homework in early. Exactly. I think facing death is the work that we should be doing during our life, and I think it helps us live a higher quality life. Cuz life and death are not opposites, they're complementary. It's yin and yang. They're not opposites. They're part of one thing. They're all part of the same whole. So I think if you reject death, you also reject life. And so that's, I think, the point we're getting at is that if you reject death, you reject life. If you accept death, you accept life. Because life has death in it. So if you don't accept death, then you're only partially accepting life. And if you have a partial acceptance for life, you'll have a partial happiness and a partial love and a partial abundance because you're only partially relating to life. But if you accept death as a part of life, not as its opposite, but as an essential part of the whole thing, then it frees you and liberates you. Leah said, I don't think that wanting to fully live this life is mutually exclusive with feeling comfortable with transitioning. I don't either. I think it's about accepting death that makes you comfortable with transitioning. And that's just not sure if that could be argued against because it's the same thing. It's scary. I think also if you don't accept death, you also don't understand the shadow or the feminine because death is part of the feminine. And in order to fully understand feminine energy, you have to completely accept death. Just like to fully understand masculine energy, you have to fully accept life. I also think the addiction to life over death is a very Western thing. It's not really prevalent in Hispanic countries. It's not really prevalent in Asian countries. It's much more an American thing and European. It's like this fear of death. Just like how, for example, I have one of my best friends died like a year ago. And whenever I bring him up around my family, because they know his family really well. We're family friends. Whenever I bring him up, they get uncomfortable. And I'm not bringing him up in a weird way. I'm just like, oh yeah, I used to do that with Kirk. That's so cool. Then they're like, and I notice, and it's not their fault, but I notice that people are really uncomfortable talking about people that have passed away, except in this like, oh, so sad. They're uncomfortable talking about the factors of death and the reality of death. And other cultures aren't really like that. They love, like, for example, Day of the Dead in Hispanic culture. I'm not sure if it's just Mexican or if it's a bigger Latino thing, but I know in Mexico they do this. They don't I feel like we celebrate the life of the dead person, but we don't celebrate the fact that they are in this eternal space now. And where they are now is actually a good thing. We almost celebrate, oh, they lived and now it was sad that they're gone. And I feel like that almost is like a gut punch to that soul because it's almost like telling that soul what's happening to it is not enough. It's not good. It's not what God wanted. But in my experience, accepting death helps me understand creativity. I don't think you can fully be an artist unless you accept death. I think every artist has a very deep relationship to death. In my experience, when I'm focused on life in this like fearful way where I want to live it up because I'm scared of death, it becomes so fake and like hollow. Everything becomes just like about what I'm doing instead of the deeper level. Yeah. But when I'm in a awareness of death and in an acceptance, then it's much more like it's surrender. Death is the same thing as surrender. So if you don't accept death, then you don't accept surrender. So like we can't separate these things because they're part of the same larger thing. Life and death is the same thing as light and dark. It's the same thing as up and down. It's the same thing as masculine, feminine. It's just the two sides of reality that dance together. And in order to attain the transcendence of that dance, we've got to accept the whole dance. If we try to ignore half the dance until it happens and then deal with it, I'll deal with it when I die or whatever. when we die, we'll realize, oh my God, I'm not prepared for this at all. I did not understand life at all. I was only focusing on this aspect, and I didn't realize that I'm, you know, time is an illusion. So we're already dead. Time is fake. And in another way, we never die because life has paradoxes, just like the universe was created out of nothing or it was everything forever. And both of those things are illogical. Life has a lot of paradoxes like this. And I think one of the biggest paradoxes is if you die before you die, then you'll really live. And then when you die, you'll be liberated. One thing that accepting death gives me freedom. I'm not afraid of anything. Not afraid of people. I'm not afraid of connection. I think that too. Oftentimes people that are afraid of death are afraid of connection because connection is a form of death. If you get really connected with someone, the old version of you is going to die. And a new version that is within that connection is going to form. And death is also another, it's a physical manifestation of letting go. So accepting death helps us let go of our manifestations too, so they arrive faster. Because when you resist death, then if you're resisting death, you're also resisting losing money, you're also resisting failure, you're also resisting the unknown. So it becomes this physicalized version of this higher trait, which is to let go. And it's this moment that we have to let go in a big way. And I think it's so important to prepare for that with awareness. Steve says you're provoking grief by bringing up memories, and it's good. Yeah, man. Me too. It's that too. I think sometimes people that are afraid of death are afraid of their grief, and they're afraid of the heaviness that life can get, because life can get so heavy, even without death. Even parts of life that are not involving death can get so heavy. And I think when we have this deeper acceptance, yeah, it's like I said, it's surrender. It gives you so much peace. I feel like anytime I've been fighting death, I'm fighting life. I'm fighting everything. I'm fighting inevitability. And when I accept death, it's like I'm part of it all. I'm one with it all. There's nothing wrong, nothing right. I'm just a beautiful fractal of consciousness that's experiencing, achieving, and letting go, and this vast array of things. It's very in basically every spiritual tradition too, they talk about this a lot. Like in Buddhism, it's really central. There's this book called the Tibetan Book of the there's the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is really old, and then there's the Tibetan Book of the Dying and Living, which is a modern analysis of that older text. And it is so good. It's one of the, and I need to bring my girlfriend a towel real quick, but it's one of the, okay, I said it here. It's one of the central parts of a lot of spiritual practice is to contemplate death. Even Western philosophers got a little bit of this with memento mori, right? I think that's a Western philosopher. I can't remember who came up with that concept, but remember death. Remember that you're going to die and life gets better. It's really, It's really that. It's more for me, it's more experiential. The more I accept death, the more full I become and the more surrendered and the more loving, the more compassionate, and also the more connected I feel because it's this thing that we all have to go through. Whether you're a billionaire or whether you're a homeless person, you're going to go through death. So it's this uniting force that runs through all of us that's unavoidable. So a lot of Hindu traditions and, you know, these higher level spiritual traditions are all about death. Even think about even Western religion. A lot of people use it as a way to not think about death because they're like, well, I'll die and then God will take care of me and it'll all be good. But if you really look into genuine Christianity, it's very much all about dying. Like Jesus's death is the central event in Christianity. And so many people come to Christianity because they're afraid of what's going to happen to them when they die. So of basically every spiritual tradition is about death and life, but about where they meet. Yeah, Leah says, I've been able to see and accept messages from familial spirits, so I'm not afraid of death, but I still want to make the most of my relationships while people are alive. Does that make sense? Yeah, so I think we're in agreement then. It's just, I think that you'll make the most of your relationships if you contemplate death more. And I think when we ignore death and in favor of trying to live, we're not actually living. So we might be saying the same thing in different words. What I'm saying is the acceptance of death enhances all of your relationships and it enhances everything in life besides the fake stuff. All the fake stuff gets torn apart by death, like money, status, uh, respect, all of these things that are temporary and don't really matter beyond the energy of them. These things start to go away when you contemplate death. But what comes up more is I love my mom, I love my son, I love my daughter, I love my friend. Like that comes more when you accept death. Or wow, I need to really take advantage of my time here. And even if it's scary, I'm going to follow my purpose instead of going on the same routine I've been on the last couple years or so. I think accepting death does all of that. I think it undermines the fake parts of life and it supports and enhances everything that's real. Because death itself is real. So everything that's real is in harmony with death because they're all eternal aspects of consciousness. But yeah, it was so scary. It felt like I was dying. I feel like it felt literally like my soul was departing from my body. I'm aware enough to know that it's not, but spiritually, I went through, I think what people that go to heaven experience, like quote unquote heaven, I think what they experience when they die, which is like the letting go. I experienced that letting go, but I did it without having to confront my actual physical death now. I did it being triggered with my future physical death, which it's not how everyone should go about it. Like I said, I didn't even face this fully until a couple days ago. And I first felt it probably in a past life, but that I can remember when I was like 5. It's deep. It's really deeply wedged into the consciousness. And also it's very, very, very suppressed in our culture. Death is viewed not as an aspect of life, but as the opposite or the end. But it's only the end of a certain cycle or phase. And we are always going through different cycles and phases. So there's no such thing as the Western version of death. I think that's the idea of this is death is not really death. Death is not really the death that people pretend it is. Death is this different thing. It's this portal, like Steve was saying. It's this end of a certain cycle. So when we accept, oh, life goes through cycles and life itself is a big cycle that does end, then we start to understand life more, instead of viewing life like, well, I'm going to die one day, so I got to live it up and then it's all over in a flash. Like, I feel like when people are in that mindset, they miss it. But when they're in the mindset of like understanding, okay, the cycle is going to end at some point, I better take advantage of what I can here, but I'm going to be at peace that the cycle does end at some point. And I don't need it to not end, or I don't need to pretend it's not going to end or avoid it. I can accept that it's coming without letting it weigh me down. It'll lighten your load actually quite a bit. I think one of the heaviest things is fighting death and resisting it. Because I think it's like I said, it's fight. Anytime we're fighting, anytime we're avoiding, anytime we're trying not to look in a certain direction, we're just creating tension that's going to reverberate in the opposite direction. It's like a rubber band. Anytime you're avoiding stuff like that, like twitching and, okay, not that, not like how a lot of people do, like they just block shit out. You're in that rubber band and it's going to snap back to feeling all of that stuff intensely. All the stuff you're avoiding will be felt intensely. Instead of, if we don't pull the rubber band and we just keep the death and the life as one thing and accept it. Because think about it, death is a blessing, because in order to die, you had to first live. If you never lived, you can't die. So dying is something, the living experience, which living is such a blessing, and death is part of it. Mobile Dental says, yes, remember at the end, we are all standing on the stage and bow with all our characters, looking left and looking right, smiling at all the dark and light aspects of ourselves. I think that happens upon liberation, but I don't think that every soul experiences liberation when they die. I think a lot of people experience what I was talking about. They go, no, and then their spirit goes into disarray without a body, and then it's so spazzed out that it has to find a new body to incarnate in, and then it creates a life. I think a lot of people also, when they die, they confront the shame of how they didn't show up for themselves and for others, and they go, I need to do it again, I need to do it again, I need to do it again, and then they reincarnate. And I think the purpose is really to reach a point of incarnations where we get to our last life, where we go, and then, in my opinion, which obviously I don't know, but in my opinion, I think that happens upon liberation. But I don't think that happens to every soul when they die. I think it only happens to souls that are really willing to let go. And I think the other souls just go into more of the same. They reincarnate into another life that's right around where their frequency was. I think that's what I think Buddhism captures very well. Actually, Christianity does too. They just pretend like all the people that don't reach liberation, they go to like a burning darkness or whatever, an infinite darkness and a burning thing, which I don't know how those could be together. But it's the same thing. I think it's just what they realize is they go back to Earth or back to a similar planet that things are happening in that way. And I think this life is pretty hellish to a lot of people. And to our spirit, it's very limiting, which is a form of hell. Yeah. And I think true liberation is an understanding of life and death. And I think understanding it kind of breaks the curse of reincarnation and allows us to live in our infinite form. And I think the reason that we're incarnated is because we're not able to live in our infinite form right now. I don't really believe in the idea that, like, I feel like there's a lot of people in the spiritual community that think their soul already figured out life and they're just coming back to help people. I don't believe in that. I think we came here to help people because we had to. Like, that was just the next step in our journey. It wasn't like, I'm so liberated and on a high level, I'm going to just incarnate down there. I think that a lot of the liberated beings that incarnate on Earth, they had karma to deal with. They just liberated themselves from it while they were on Earth. And I don't think they came here for that purpose. I think any human that is here is on that level of life where they still are worrying and struggling through the problems of human life. And I think that's why we're here, because we need to be here. And I think helping people is just part of existence. I think souls on the higher level help people, souls on the lower level help people. I think helping is just part of existence. But I think we come here to confront ourselves. I don't think we come here to liberate others. I think that's, to me, it's an excuse to not confront yourself, is to pretend like you're just here to liberate others, and then you're going to go back to some higher place. Yeah. I think hell is when people are alone with themselves for the first time in many centuries, or since their last death, and then they themselves tap into God consciousness and they feel so ashamed of how they messed up that they want to prove themselves to God, so they go do it again. But then they forget again, they mess up again, and then come back up. And I think God doesn't want us to do that. I think God wants us to confront him or it or they, I don't know, confront the Godhead, you know? And I think people don't want to do that. I think they'd rather continue in separation. And I think that's why a lot of the philosophers and teachers and spiritual individuals say most people are not reaching liberation from this life. I think many people are in a long, long cycle that's going to take billions of years for them to break. And I think some people are breaking the cycle and liberating themselves. But I don't think it's for everybody. I think a lot of humans on Earth now are not meant to have awakenings. They're not meant to come into love. They're meant to really do with what humans do, which is deal with their choices. But I think some of us are here to transcend that level and to go to the next level. Yeah. And yeah, I think for me, accepting death gives life a really deep fullness. And it also allows me to be unconditionally loving. It allows me to forgive easier. And it allows me to let go. I really think it's if you look into a lot of the systemic issues in the West, a lot of it has to do with a lack of understanding of death and also a lack of understanding of poverty. This is something I think will be revealed on a grand scale in our lives, is that poverty has almost nothing to do with lack of hard work. And I think there's like an American mentality that poverty is because people either don't know enough or aren't working hard enough. And I think it's just totally false. I think the world is set up in a form that forces most people to be poor. And sure, any individual maybe could work themselves out of it, but if everyone that's poor just started hustling and working hard and getting into the right frequency, I don't think they would all just become wealthy. I think each individual can do it, but I think as a collective, for us to actually alleviate poverty and hunger from the world, all of the people that have to change too. It's not that the poor people are doing something wrong and the wealthy people are doing something well. It's much more so that the system is set up to benefit the few and to exploit the many. And if someone I think we won't live in a world that doesn't have poverty until the people that are wealthy change their energy too. So I think we're going through a big global shift that's much more than a spiritual shift. I think we're reaching the brink of a technological revolution that will uproot everything. I think we're also reaching the brink of social revolutions that will uproot everything. And I think that's a reason why a lot of people don't fit into the current status quo, is because it's not going to be here that long. The whole idea of pick your job, work really hard, climb the ranks, get the gold watch and the retirement fund. I don't think that is going to be anyone's goal in like 10 years. I think it'll all be different in such a drastic way. Like I think it'll be so much it'll be so different that people won't know what to do. And Steve says, "Yeah, poverty is not necessarily tied to laziness." Yeah, it's really not. Cuz also wealth is not that much tied to abundance. A lot of people tell this lie. It's not true. In order to gain wealth, you have to be on a similar frequency to other people that have wealth. That's the whole point. But that doesn't mean that frequency is God's abundance frequency. There are people in God's abundance frequency that are wealthy, but they're way less common than people that are in a dissociated abundance and in a prideful abundance. That's not really based, it's much more based on siphoning energy rather than being based on radiating energy. It's like siphoning. A lot of current economic systems are energy siphons that take energy from a lot of people and give it to a few. So a lot of these systems are going to fall in our lifetimes. And there will be much more paths open to receive abundance through alignment. Instead of nowadays, to receive abundance through alignment, you basically have to be an entrepreneur, or you have to find some company with a really aligned CEO that's like actually operating in abundance in the true way. But most ways of earning like $1 million, let's say, involve connecting with energy that you don't really want to connect with, and that's going to mess you up after death and in this life. It's so important because money is very karmic. So wherever we receive our money is the energy of our money. If we're working in a corporation and that corporation is doing bad things and exploiting, then the money we make is exploitation money. It's so important to work for a good company. If you do have a job with a company, it's so important to work with a company that's doing good in the world, because there are so many company and people accept it. They're like, oh, I work for them. I don't really agree with what they do, but it's a good paycheck, and and they don't realize they are a part of that energy. The money they make is energetically tied to what that company does. Because if that company profiting is how you get your paycheck. So many people work for, let's take an easy example, like working for McDonald's. It's like, oh, I'm just making ends meet. Yeah, but you're making ends meet by poisoning people. And it doesn't matter if you're making minimum wage. All that minimum wage you made is poison money. It's just something to think about. You want to notice where you're getting your money, because some people are getting their money from like they think, it's just the best job I can get. It's better to get a worse job with a company that's doing aligned things in the world and make like half the money you make and reduce your lifestyle, rather than to earn the amount you're earning from a company that is doing not always evil, but exploitation. So many companies are exploiting people on such a massive scale. Another thing is and this is something I fall into, like my iPhone. My iPhone is made by exploiting Indian and Asian children, right? And me using my iPhone and me paying Apple is actually supporting the virtual enslavement of people in India and Asia. I'm not saying that we should all get rid of our phones. I'm also not saying if the company you work for, you should definitely quit. You got to be able to support yourself. But it's important to remember that you are karmically and energetically tied to it. We're all karmically and energetically tied to the energy of the things that the phone companies are doing. We're energetic. A big thing is factory farming. If I eat meat, I used to be a vegan, but I try to eat grass-fed and pasture-raised and all that stuff, but I don't always. And so my money and my energy is supporting the exploitation of animals. And I'm aware of that. It's so important. Thank you says, so what do you do? How do we make it better? The first step is awareness. It's just like with things like, for example, like I live in Hawaii, and that's frowned upon to move to Hawaii, because since there's so many remote workers coming here and also wealthy people coming here that don't necessarily have a job here, we are slowly pushing out the poorer people that have their ancestry here. But just me showing up didn't necessarily push one person out, but maybe it did. And it's not up to me to not be here. It's up to me to understand that I'm part of that pain. Same thing with America. Like, if you're benefiting from America, you have to accept that the reason you're benefiting is because America exploited Native Americans and also completely exploited Latin America and also Europe, but mostly Latin America and the Native Americans. So many Latin American countries are not successful because we screwed their economy and uprooted their political system. You can look up the banana republics like 100 years ago. Would we would buy Americans would buy a ton of land in like Costa Rica or whatever, Mexico even, and they'd grow a bunch of fruits and they'd start a big fruit company there and they'd export the fruits and they'd make a lot of money and then they'd use their wealth to buy out the politicians and buy out the country, and then we would basically like flip and dump the economy, siphon the money out, and it would all go to America. So one of the reasons why America is the land of the free and like the best place to become a millionaire is because we exploited a bunch of other countries. So like if you're benefiting from an American job, you're also tied into the karma of the exploitation that America did to Latin America and Native Americans if your company's American. Yeah, you got it right. Thank you, 999. We are all part of the problem. There's no room to point the finger. And that's a lot of people are always they know this stuff, but they don't extrapolate it to realize you are the problem too. It doesn't matter the specifics. It matters that we live in an exploitative economy. So if you're benefiting in it, then you are benefiting off other people's pain. And it's not a matter of completely stopping and living off grid or something. It's a matter of acknowledging and understanding so that you can face the karma of it. Just like if you eat meat, you shouldn't be like, whatever, meat, yay. You should be like, wow, this is a dead animal that gave its life to me. Like I was vegan for 2 years. So whenever I eat meat, it's like a spiritual thing. I'm like, wow, thank you so much that this cow or many cows died so that I could have this. And I'm not even saying it's right, but I'm acknowledging what is. A lot of people don't acknowledge what is. They fall into groupthink. They go, well, everyone eats meat, so it's okay. Everyone has an iPhone, so it's okay. Everyone has a job in America, so it's okay. No, no, no. That's groupthink. Other people don't think it's okay. Go to other countries and you'll see they're angry at Americans, and rightfully so. It doesn't mean that we should be punished or something, but it does mean we need to be aware of what we're creating. So what I do is in my meditation, I go, God, is there any karma that I haven't processed? Is there any wrongdoing that I've done that I can atone for? A lot of people miss this in their spiritual practice. They live in this illusion that they are this poor little anxious spirit that just needs to activate and then they're going to get all this love. They don't realize you're also karmically the bad guy in a lot of cases. And that's part of understanding what being a human is about, is understanding that we're the bad guy and the good guy. And it's not about being the good guy and hating the bad guy. It's about realizing you're the bad guy and the good guy. So what do we do about that? And Thank You says, there's no right or wrong. It's just about being aware. Yeah, there's right or wrong's an opinion. There is karmic debt, though. If you owe karma, you owe karma. If you created pain, you will be caused pain. There's reciprocation for what you do, but there's no lines between right and wrong. Many things that are right are wrong in some ways, and many things that are wrong are right in some ways. It's much more complex. It's not binary, right and wrong. It's this really complex issue of cause and effect. It's not about did you do what's right? It's about what did you create? Did you create pain or liberation? And what was your intention? And how does that intention relate to other people? Because people pick up intention. So if you're in a bad intention, but you do something good, you get some good karma from the good, but you also get bad karma from the intention. So it's about atoning. It's like, that's why I like Christianity, is because, or specifically Catholicism. I really dislike Protestantism because it's basically like they treat Jesus like a get out of jail free card instead of like uh, a, whatever, a savior in their case, or a transcendental energy. They treat life like a lot of people in Protestantism don't atone for their sins, which doesn't really work. I don't think about it as sin, but it's the same concept in Hinduism and Buddhism of processing your karma. It's the same idea. It's you did stuff that caused pain, therefore pain is coming back to you. But if you face it head on and undo it on the higher level, then you won't be as affected on the lower level. So a lot of it's about purifying the energy that you brought to it. So if you're showing up and you're eating a burger, it's not that you need to have the same fate as the cow, but it's that there will be some heaviness in you from eating an animal that didn't give its consent to dying, you know? So it's about noticing your impact. It's about letting go of right and wrong, because sometimes right and wrong is a groupthink thing that makes us feel comfortable. Oh, everyone else thinks it's right, so it's okay. No, did it cause harm or not? And some things that are right cause harm, and some things that are wrong liberate people. So what's the actual truth? Is that right and wrong is a binary system, and there's not binary systems in consciousness in the higher levels. There's just you got to just face what you owe. Try it right now. Say this: God, is there, and you can say source or universe, whatever you feel comfortable with. God, is there anything that I need to atone for? Any karma I've created, any pain I've caused, any misalignment that I'm not actively confronting? And then sit with yourself for a bit. And Leah says, so you're going to face the karma of moving to Hawaii and owning an iPhone? Interesting. We all are. We all face everything that we do. So yes. I do it intentionally. Other people do it by having negative events manifest in their life. I do it through intentional spiritual purification. Those are the only two options. You either intentionally spiritually purify it, or you pay your debt by experiencing it. There's no other ways. No, you didn't sound like a bitch at all. That's exactly what is true. We all have to atone for all of our wrongdoing eventually. It's all there. It's not like we can brush it off our shoulders. We must face it. And for the meat we eat, and even for times where this is a big one, when we judge people in our heads, we are judging ourselves. When we view people as worthless or less than us, we are judging ourselves as worthless or less than others. So this is a big part of karma that a lot of people avoid. What you do in your head is karmically accounted for. If you're mean to people in your head, but you're nice in person, you have to deal with that. That's not fake. Your mind is not a fake world. It's just a higher level of existence. So all of the negative thoughts you have towards people affect their energy, and you are karmically involved with hurting them. Just Be Aware says, who exactly is facing this karma? Do you mean in like a non-dualistic way? I guess God. In a human way, Christian Taylor Stockwell. In a certain way, humanity at large. In another way, Americans. There's different groupings of consciousness. So it depends what perspective you're asking from. And then Thank You says, I guess we keep getting incarnated into this cycle. incarcerated into the cycle. Yeah. Yeah, but by our own doing, we feel so ashamed of ourselves that we go, "I'm gonna make up for it. I'm going right back in," instead of actually just going, "It's okay that I messed up." That's also atoning. You don't have to always purify every piece of karma. You have to recognize the misunderstanding, because that's all that God cares about. God doesn't care that you mess up. God cares if you didn't realize you messed up. God cares if you don't face the messing up. If you don't accept that you're not perfect and that you do wrong. Like, we're limited humans. We mess up, we make mistakes, we hurt people. That's part of our nature. And it's important to realize that and not try to avoid it. Not try to pretend that we're supposed to be perfect, but we messed up. No, we're supposed to mess up, and that's part of life. And as we mess up, we learn, but we only learn if we face our mistakes. If we sweep them under the rug, we make them again. So, like, think of this, for example. If someone murders someone, but somehow God knows that they're fully sorry for it and they will never do it again, in a perfect world, would they still have to go to jail? And then if your answer is yes, explain to me what the purpose of them going to jail would be. If you have the omniscient power to know that they genuinely will never do it again and they genuinely faced off with the immense negativity they created. Should they go to jail for the punishment? Because to me, the only reason to put a murderer in jail is to prevent them from killing anyone else and also to let them sit with what they did. So if someone's never going to kill anyone else and they are sitting with what they did, they don't need prison. Obviously, this is an idealistic way of understanding it, where we're acting like God can really tell us directly. But it's the same thing for all of us. God doesn't care if we mess up, as long as we realize it and change and become a better person. All of our past mistakes are okay because they're kind of expected. It's kind of anticipated that if you're born into Earth, you're going to fall into negative patterns. Yeah, but thank you says we have no way of knowing it. Yeah, but I'm giving you a hypothetical example where we do know that's how it is. And then I'm asking you, upon that hypothetical example, what do you think they should do? I'm not asking how we should change the laws and the policies. I'm asking you a hypothetical scenario. Yeah, so just know, like, just by existing, we cause pain and karma. It's so important to recognize that. We're not these high vibrational spiritual beings that are just a little anxious, and no, there's a reason we're on this low level of consciousness where on the other side of the world there's literal children getting murdered for no reason in Gaza. We're on the same planet where that stuff's happening. So you incarnated here. You didn't go to the big blue planet where everyone's loving each other and floating and sending spiritual symbols of enlightenment to each other. We didn't incarnate on that planet. I think those planets exist. Why are we not there? Huh. Maybe we're not aligned with that. Maybe we're aligned with a reality like this. I think this is something missing in a lot of spiritual people's lives. So I don't know if you guys agree with me or totally disagree, but I think it's somewhere I love the idea of original sin in Christianity because it's so true. Like, we have this inherent darkness in us that we're working on. Humans are not this enlightened species of love that just has a couple bad eggs. We're all messed up. I am too, and so are you. We're all messed up. But a lot of people, they could never hold that weight and still be confident and happy. I can be fully confident in myself, and I wouldn't say I'm fully happy yet, but I'm pretty darn happy. And I can still hold that weight that even by like we're destroying the environment. Anyone use AI? Every time you type a prompt, it's like pouring a water bottle out. You know, I think it's important because what this does is it creates humility. It helps you forgive others. If you realize that you are causing people harm, you'll forgive those that cause you harm because you realize we're all part of the same system. There's this guy, Matthias De Stefano, that remembers a lot of his past lives. And he said this really interesting thing. He said he will often gather with a lot of his really spiritual friends who are like running businesses and they meditate all the time and they're so healed. Yet he notices that when they all get together, they end up creating the same conflicts and problems that countries create with each other. Even though they're the spiritual ones, they're the ones that did the healing, they're the ones that healed their hearts, they're the ones that talk to God. But why are they still falling into the same patterns that world governments fall into? You know why? Because we're all one. You can't separate yourself from the murderers and the thieves. They're just like you, and so are the saints. That's my biggest philosophy in life is like, you're just as good and as bad as every other human because we're all one. It's all you. There's not another person, there's not another being doing humanity. It's all consciousness. And if consciousness is manifesting in a corrupted way, then consciousness is manifesting in a corrupted way. It's not about, it doesn't weigh on the individual. It weighs on the collective. It weighs on God, actually. That's why God is helping and purifying earth, because it's God's fault. Because God created it all. And it's our fault. But not in a sense of shame, in a sense of understanding. It's like if you keep knocking things off your table, but then you think someone else is doing it. It's so important that you first recognize, oh, wait, I'm the one knocking things off my table. It's stop projecting. It's not the president's fault. It's not the economy's fault. It's not your mom's fault. It's on you. And by you, I mean consciousness. I don't mean you as a person even, because you as a person can't really do it. God can do it through you. Life can do it through you. Consciousness can do it through you if you surrender. So I think that's what Christianity is about too. It's about surrendering to God and letting God fix our problems. And forgiving everyone else because you realize you're just as bad as them in a certain way. And you're just as good as the best people too. And Steve says, so perhaps dying before dying includes dying to the demand for justice and holding presence. Yeah. Yeah. The demand for justice, it's kind of like the thing, like he without sin shall cast the first stone. It's like a lot of us are not living fully in alignment, but it makes us feel better when we see someone that's less aligned than us and we can point the finger at them. If all those government people just did ayahuasca, then we'd all be great. No. The collective consciousness is learning. And it's learning at the pace that it's learning. And there's nothing wrong with learning. I don't believe in right and wrong. I believe in knowing and learning. I think we misunderstand the words. I think to be right is to know, and to be wrong is to still be learning. Third Astral says, your dissociation video helped me so much on my spiritual journey. I'm so glad to hear that. That's the one where I'm in like a park, right? On the grass. And it's like about 4D or something. I haven't revisited that video in a long time. And Thank You says, when you say God, what are you referring to? The inner higher self? The all, the one, whatever you want to call that. The thing that doesn't have limits, the fully encompassing thing is what I call God. But if we want to break it down specifically, what I'm calling God is, I believe, in my experience, I experience God as a father, a mother, and a child. I experience God the Father as kind of like the peak masculine energy, God the Mother as the peak feminine energy, and then the child is the peak masculine feminine together, because that's what a child is the mom and the dad together, right? So I picture, when I connect with God, I picture it as like the Christ consciousness, which is like the child, and then the God the Father, which is like the full awareness, and then God the Mother, which is the womb of creation. But it's just my personal understanding. I don't believe it in like a dogmatic way. And I could definitely, when I die, I'll probably have a deeper understanding of that, or maybe just later in my life. But what I mean is the one. That's the best way of saying it. The one. If the one that's not part of the many, the one that is just the one, and that's it. There's no many, there's no other. That's what I call God, is the consciousness of the all. And I think we are partial manifestations of that within creation, which is within the mother. And we are actually versions. We're becoming similar to the Christ consciousness energy, which is the fusion of the masculine and feminine, and in a way is the highest God, but also in a way is lowest too, most connected to us. And I think a lot of Christianity is connecting with the child of God, which is the child of the masculine and feminine, and viewing it as if it has a person and a name, which they call Jesus. But for me, Jesus is just another Buddha or another very aligned figure that embodied that child of God consciousness. And I think humans are learning to tap into that child of God consciousness. Leah says, personally, I believe the higher power is only love. I feel like what I said is also only love. So I feel like you're agreeing with me. And Thank You says, if I don't know what the one is, how do I concentrate on that or imagine it as imaginable? I can't explain it because it doesn't make sense in my head what oneness is. It doesn't make sense to me either, but that's part of your relationship to God. Just like when you're a kid, you don't understand your mom's or dad's job. Just in that way, but they're there and they interact with you. Or like how your cat or your dog doesn't understand your job or your social life or something. Right? It's not on it's unimaginable for us. Like, we could not conceptualize what God is. What we can do is surrender to God, which we don't need to use the imagination to do so. It's actually when we stop doing stuff that God speaks through us and to us. When we try to imagine God, we're going to imagine an image of God, which is not going to be God. To me, this is God's face. Like everything I'm looking at is God's face. Like my whole vision and all the energy I feel, all the senses, that's like God's face, like looking at me. But it's not God's only face, and it's not the only aspect of God. But yeah, ultimately, and by the one, what I mean is it's just non-dual. It's not like God and the devil, and then they're both like equal counterparts, like how kind of more modern Christianity thinks of it. I think of it as God, and then within, I think of it like light. God is like light in the same way that darkness is just a lack of light. Pain and suffering and all that is just a lack of love. So if God is light, then the outskirts that are far from the light, where there's less light, is the darkness. But it's still part of God because there's still some light there. If there's no light, then it's not part of existence. If there's just minimal light but some light, it's still part of God, but it's like the outskirts. And then you have the inner part, which is like, you know, unimaginable. And in the same way with love, people that don't have a lot of love are just simply people that, or sorry, people that have a lot of pain and evil, even. Evil and pain aren't real things, they're illusions. So within God, there's illusions of suffering, pain, and all this stuff. But if you look at what's actually real, it's only God. It's nothing but God. It's only God. The part that's not God is the fantasy version that we project onto life, where we create all these stories and pain and fears. That's the part that is not God. But in a way, it is God. It's just in reality, it's not real. So if something's like for example, if I'm making a shadow puppet on the wall and you're really afraid of it, it doesn't mean the shadow puppet's like an actual wolf, but it does mean that the shadow puppet is causing you fear. And the shadow puppet, this fearful like being, is not part of God. But what is part of God is my hand, the light, and the shadow. That's all part of God. But the scary, mythical like monster that I'm creating isn't real. So in the same way, the monsters we encounter aren't real. And everything that's real is God. It's in Course of Miracles, they really explain this well. And Steve says, step into the one river, see how it is there, feel the flow of the one. That is the energy. You're in the one river. Yeah, I really like that because it does really capture that essence. It's more of an experience. So I think for thank you 999, try not to imagine it. Try to ask for it. This is what helps me, because it's not really you doing that matters. It's you opening that matters. You receiving or being willing to receive. So if you want, just put your hands over your heart and ask in a really genuine way. You can say it out loud or in your own head. Please show yourself to me, God. Please help me understand you and how you impact me and whatever else you're looking to learn from that. Leah, come on. It feels like everything I say, you're just saying something contrary to it. I think you're being a bit of a contrarian. I'm trying to work with you and find connections and find places that we overlap. Like, sure, we can all find things that aren't quite true or contradictory things, you know? Or we can find the place that we overlap and that we agree. And in that place, we can connect and connect to love and connect to life, connect to the one. because what you're saying really doesn't have anything to do with what I'm saying. It's just a small point about a small point that I said. And I don't really like contrarians. I don't like the behavior of it because I'm trying to create more closeness. And yeah, my favorite aspect of spirituality is surrender and just asking. So much of the time when we get really good at meditating, we think we're just supposed to like do it ourselves, like meditate our way into abundance, meditate our way into knowing God. Like it's a very doing type mindset, and we want to let go of the doing mindset and get more into an opening type mindset or receiving. So what I like to do is ask open-ended questions or requests to the universe, to whatever you want to call it, to God the Mother, God the Father, God the Child, whatever. You can ask, and it's very, in my experience, almost like scary how fast it happens. Sometimes instantly. When you ask for something, you receive it. So I think that's true as long as it comes from a genuine place. If our ego is asking for something, then it usually will be met with ego, right? It won't land with God. But if we ask something from God and we really genuinely ask it in a way that's like, not like begging, like, please, please, but like, God, if you could show yourself to me, that would be so great for me. Thank you so much. When you ask really genuinely, I think you receive it. And thanks, CCP Parrot. I live in Hawaii. I live in the mountains. Let me give you. There's a bunch of incense stuff over there, but check out all the trees. Thank you. Asking is doing. Yeah, you're right, technically, but it's not much of a doing. It's small and then you let it go. A lot of people are trying to do until they receive. Asking is like one small action and then surrender for like an hour or days or a long period of time. You know, so it's kind of yin and yang. Like that, you're right. The asking part is yang. It is kind of like a outwards moving energy, but it's very subtle and it creates more space than other actions. Asking is kind of like a request for an action. It is an action technically, philosophically, if we want to break down the word, but it's much more about opening, like I was saying, which isn't a conscious action. It's more of a lack of action because closing is more of an action. We close off. Opening is more of like the natural flow. So a lot of times if we go with the natural flow, it's kind of like they call the Tao Te Ching, the flow of life. When we're going with that flow, we are doing in like a philosophical term, like we're taking action, but we're not really doing in a spiritual way. We're more so surrendering to something beyond us, and that thing beyond us is doing. And you didn't overstep, Leah. You can share your true opinions. I just wanted to point out that like it felt to me like you were trying to find things that I was saying to combat instead of trying to find things that maybe we connect on, which it's no problem. You have the free will to contradict me. And maybe those were just the genuine thoughts that came up. And it just so happens coincidentally, they all kind of were contrarian, but it doesn't matter to me. I'm just saying for for all of us. It's good to find unity, find the our shared ground. Um, it's not necessary. We sometimes we have to say the thing that's opposite to someone said because it benefits the all more. I'm an argumentative person, definitely, but I try my best to meet each other where we're at, like in agreement, even if we disagree in different ways. Oh, yeah, let's talk about this a little more. Steve says, I'm feeling drawn back to your energetic engagement with yes. This conversation took a necessary dark turn with much light. Yeah, let's talk about that a little more because that yes is the energy of abundance. Yes is the energy of love. Not always. Sometimes yes, it's a let's put it this way. It's an energy of opening. Sometimes it opens us into the wrong thing if we say yes to the wrong part of our life. But if we're saying yes to life and yes to humanity and yes to others, then I find that we reach really high levels of abundance and connection and love. Where did I hear this first? I think there's this really old meditation. I don't even know where it's from, but I used to go to this meditation group or club back in like 2016 or 2015. And they would play all of these audios. And there was this one that was like called, oh, it's called Your Money Magnetism. I don't know if any of you guys, I'm going to try to find it. And it's kind of cheesy. Like it's an older, yeah, I can't find, it's not Kriyananda. It was like maybe he's the one that created it more so, but it was more, it felt like that kind of like 90s or 80s like Tony Robbins style self-improvement where it's like, yes, you are a creator of your reality. But the tape had a really good frequency to it and it had a lot of yes energy. And I used to listen to that a lot. And one of the main things, yeah, Dale Carnegie style. It could have been, well, it sounded a little more recent than Carnegie. Like it's not the exact tape that I'm talking about, but same vibe of like just like getting people pumped up, which isn't that bad, but it's not always the path. But a big thing that was about was it would be like, say yes to your life. Say yes to more money coming in. And it's like funny repeating it, but it really tapped me in. I would be sitting there like, yes, yes. And I think that energy is so important for manifesting because a lot of people are treading too lightly and it's here's a great way of saying it. You've got to play to win. You can't play to not lose. You have to play to win. You can't play to not lose. Another example of this, if you're climbing a mountain or something, or like you're rock climbing, don't look down. That's what everyone says, right? Don't look down. Just keep going up. Same thing with this type of energy. It's yes. Is like saying yes is playing to win as opposed to saying not, oh, I'm going to try to avoid the no. Then you're actually focused on the no. Same thing like if you're flying or like you're rock climbing, let's say, but I had a dream once where I was flying and this principle applied. The more you look at the ground and go, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, the more likely you are to slip. But if you look at the top and go, I'm going to make it, I'm going to make it, I got this, then you make it. So in a more logical way, yes and not no are the same thing. Because if you negate a yes or you negate a no, it becomes a yes. But spiritually, it is not the same thing at all. Spiritually, it's not the same at all. Spiritually, not no means no, and yes means yes. So, not no is still a focus on no, and yes is different than not no, if this makes sense. And thank you is saying having a tiny bit of doubt kills manifestation. You're so right. Yes, exactly. It's because a lot of times a lot of us are trying to not fail, and that creates failure. You can't try to not fail. You have to try to succeed. You have to aim for your goal and focus on your goal. You cannot focus on not you're gonna the funny thing is you're gonna fail, and that's actually part of succeeding, you know? You're gonna fail. So I think accepting failure as inevitable, when you accept failure as inevitable, then you're free to focus on success because you're not worried if something fails. It's okay if it fails because that's just another rung on the ladder, and it's not going to make you fall. You're moving forward. You're not at the finish line yet, but you're not going to fall either. So this is I think tuning into yes energy helps you get out of the other energy, which is like a lot of times if you're in perfectionism, what is perfectionism? Is it trying to have the highest success possible, or is it trying not to fail? Like, how does it usually manifest? For me, perfectionism usually manifests as don't fail. Oh, don't mess up. Oh, don't say that. Oh no, you did that wrong. And it's just basically like brakes, 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 hit the brakes, hit the brakes. And then your car is stopped and you wonder why you're not going anywhere. But then yes energy is the opposite. Yes, I'll make a post today. Yes, I'll reach out to that person today. Yes, I'll show up and FaceTime my mom and talk to my family today. Yes, I will clean the house today. It's like you're focusing on the yes or stuff that isn't quite in your grasp. Yes, I'm going to build that $1 million business. Yes, I'm going to get this music out to as many people as I can. You've got to be on that frequency. It's okay to have doubts. I have doubts. Everyone has doubts, but the problem is when we focus on our doubts and when we're we're trying to not have our failure arrive instead of trying to have the success arrive. It's different. Trying not to fail usually involves playing it safe, right? And trying to succeed usually involves taking risks. That's a big differentiator. Playing it safe will you'll end up safe right in your comfort zone, right where you were yesterday. Taking risks, you might fall, you might mess up, you might cause problems, but you're definitely not going to stay where you are. That's yeah, and for people that weren't here earlier, what I was talking about with yes energy is try to say the word yes in like a almost like a victorious type way. Like yes. Like how you would say it if you like I don't know, shot a half court basketball and it went in. Like yes. Say that and notice what comes up in your body. Do you feel triumphant when you say it or does it feel fake? Like or is it like because if it feels like then usually you actually have a weird relationship with the word yes and the energy of yes, which means you are probably saying no to yourself in order to control yourself. You're like, no, don't do the bad thing. No, you need to work today. No, you need to do this. Instead of, yes, let's do the work. Yes, let's eat the healthy food. Yes, let's do this. So different. Same action, totally different state of being. And also usually completely different outcome. So tune in with yourself. Are you in the frequency of yes? Or are you in the frequency of like maybe or if this, then yes? A lot of people are in that. Well, if this happens, then yeah. Or if this, then yes. Nah, you ought to be in the yes. Oh, I failed there. Okay, next time will be better. Yes. Still face the failure, face the consequences, learn about it, but don't let it turn you into a no person. Don't let it turn you into, don't let it turn you into a no person. Yeah, try it at work because that's another, we usually go, no, don't stop working. You need to finish this. Instead, when you feel distracted or you want to scroll on your phone, or I don't know what you do, but a lot of people, at least in office jobs, is when I was in an office job, this is what I struggled with, is staying focused on my actual work. I would get distracted. And so instead of going, no, don't scroll, or like, no, don't take a break, you can go, yes, I'm going to finish this. Yes. Notice the energy. No is like pushing away. Yes is like magnetizing towards. So if you say like, let's take, let's say you're in a sales job. Let's say you're in a sales position where you're trying to like get someone to join something or say yes to something, essentially. You can either try not to say the wrong thing and not to be weird, or you can say, yes, I'm going to show up for this person fully. Yes, I'm going to do my best to understand this person's needs. Yes, I'm going to make them an offer if it seems aligned. You know, instead of going, no, I'm not going to be weird. No, I'm not going to say the wrong thing. Yes is not just a word, it's a frequency, it's an energy, and it's closely related to abundance. It's closely related to so many aspects of life. It's so related to happiness because you can't find happiness by going no, 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 no TV, no that. Like you won't find happiness. You'll just end up bored and not happy. But what you can do is you want to watch TV, but you realize meditation would be better for you in that moment. So you're like, yes, I'm going to meditate. Instead of no, I'm not going to watch TV, even though it's the same outcome. Saying no to TV is saying yes to meditation on the physical, but on the spiritual, it's two different things. One of them you're fighting and defending. The other one you are pursuing and aligning. Two different energies. Also, if you guys didn't know, we have the Circle of Wisdom, which is a free community to join. We have higher tiered levels where you can pay to become a member and you get access to 4 or 5 sessions a month. But if you want to go to the free version where we have a full moon gathering every month and then we're active in the group chat almost every day, then go check out the Circle of Wisdom group chat. It's not linked in this live, but if you check out any of my other videos and all my stuff, you'll easily find it. And we talk about a lot of this stuff. And I do a podcast on this topic. I haven't done it on this topic exactly, but these types of topics. So if you resonated with this, come join us because this is an amazing blossoming community. It's very at its early stages. So you can really get involved and meet amazing people and connect and show up. So I'd love to see you guys in there. You know, we have like 40 members in the group chat, but I'd say about 10 or so people are pretty active. So I'd love to have you guys in there too. So stay in your yes frequency. Tap in. Notice where you're saying no to yourself or no to your life or no to opportunities, and see if you can shift that. Try a little meditation where you sit with yourself and say yes, while you're doing deep breathing, you know? Maybe soon I'll put a yes meditation into the Circle of Wisdom community or something. Because I'm building a lot of resources for Circle of Wisdom right now. So thanks for watching today, everyone. It was so awesome hanging with you. I love chatting. I love, talking about all this stuff, hearing all of your opinions too, even if they go against mine. I love open spaces of truth where people can share their truth and find connection. I think so many places people are forced to become an inauthentic version of themselves because they want to be accepted. But in my content and my social media community and Circle of Wisdom, the whole goal is kind of the opposite. It's a place where everyone can be accepted for who they are. And it's a place where everyone can share their truth and come together. So love to see you in there. Thank you all for joining. And also, if you guys want to look at any other parts of this live, it's going to be, when I end it, it'll be available as a video. So you can like scroll back and rewatch any parts or jot anything down if there was anything that caught your attention. Yeah, this was awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thank you thank you. Thanks, Steve, Leah, Parrot. Who else was in here in the chat? Dave. I'm not sure who's still here, and Mobile. Thanks for everyone that engaged and everyone that just showed up and watched. I love that too. Sending love to you all. Bless you. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you soon.